Hi, I wanted to come in and talk a little bit about why we use or don't use the word addict. So, I was just on a podcast and I was asked the same question about why in this group and in some others that I admin do I use the word addict fairly selectively. Um, and for those of you who know me or know the way I talk about people who struggle with substance abuse, I normally don't refer to them as addicts. I personally don't like using that word, and I don't think that it is compassionate for the most part. But I do want to talk about why I made the decision within this group specifically to use that word, and and what it means. For those of you who know what I've been working on, I'm also coming out with a book soon called How to Love an Addict, and I just ran a masterclass by the same name, How to Love an Addict, and the reason that I use this word is very specific. So, uh, when most people use the word addict, historically, that word has been used sort of as a pejorative, right? So it's usually coupled with an idea of like resentment or animosity, some level of like hatred or discomfort or judgment on the person who is struggling. And the reason that I choose to use that word is because many of the people that I do want to reach with this message, and many of the people who I feel are in a place where they're struggling or where they're suffering by their experiences with someone struggling with addiction, um, I want to be able to use language that they relate to, that they can resonate with, in hopes that it eventually moves them toward a place of greater compassion, better understanding, and a place of less judgment. So, for instance, when I say, like, when someone says, "Oh, I hate addicts," which is something that I've heard in other support groups. Luckily, I've never really heard it in this one, but I have heard people say it before. It's just, "Oh, I hate addicts. Addicts always lie. Addicts are this. Addicts are that." Painting with a very broad brush and being generally kind of judgmental or just on sort of a negative loop of how they feel about it. Um, when someone is in that place where they're saying, "I hate addicts," you can't take someone who feels so strongly negative and jump them all the way to feeling, "Oh no, that's a human being with thoughts and feelings and they matter." Because that person is feeling they're not only feeling the animosity, they're also feeling victimized. They're feeling discomfort from their own situation, and they're likely just not quite in a place where they can make the full cognitive jump to that compassion. So the reason that I then say I love an addict or how to love an addict is so that the people who are in that spot can see, oh, this person, this addict, is someone I can love. From there, they go, okay, I love an addict. That's right. And they can acknowledge that within themselves. Yes, I do love an addict. From there, they can then see, I love someone who's struggling. I love someone who's having a hard time, who's experiencing pain. At this point, they're learning more about addiction. They're learning to be more compassionate. They're learning the understanding that I like to talk about in this group. Uh, and then from that, they can move to, I love my partner. I love my son, daughter, mother, whoever it is in their life that's struggling. I love this person because they're a person. And and from that point, you've eliminated that full like negative loop judgment of I hate addicts, but you can't make that full jump all at once. So that's why I wanted to make sure that was fully explained in this group, that it's not just used because of, because it's the word that they're called. It's it's used not only to break the stigma, but to start to shift the way we think about people, start to shift the way we perceive people, and start to acknowledge our own our own responsibility to what is often our own shame for having these feelings, for feeling this affection, this love for someone who is struggling. If we can take on that title of addict and have it mean something about us as well, we can take the heat out of it. We can kind of, alleviate some of the intensity of that shame and that guilt that someone who's struggling may feel about their own title or their own identifier that so many people use about them. And I feel the same way. I say the word addict. I feel the same way about the word alcoholic. I don't agree that either of these things are who we are. Uh, I know that people can change and they're not attached permanently to these sorts of identities that we may adopt or may experience. An experience is not the same as an identity, and so for that reason, we use this word to identify and then deconstruct that identity. But the first step is to identify and understand how we really feel about that identity. I hope that makes sense. I hope this kind of sheds some light on sort of where I stand and how I feel about the word addict, why we use it, why I use it in a lot of my language, but generally just in referring to, is this how you feel? You'll notice that when I talk about it in other contexts, I tend to say person struggling with substance abuse or struggling with addiction or someone who is suffering or afflicted, etc. I use different words based on how I feel the context suits. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful or illuminating in some way. I just wanted to jump on and throw something out there because I had it in my brain. So thank you for listening, for those of you who are listening.